Hi, everyone. Hello. Hey. Hi, Laura. Hi, Sandra. Vicky, Christina. We'll wait a minute or two. Oh. Hey, John. John is our amazing CTO. He is the one that builds all of our stuff. All right. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll just wait another minute. Some people might be joining. Hey, Kyla. Kayla. Hey, Jeremy. How are you? All right. We'll just wait another minute. Hi, Nancy. Hey, Philip. Oh, wow. You're in DC now, Nancy? I'm in New York City. So crazy, crazy times. Very crazy. Hey, Kate. This is fun. This is cool. All right. It's 8:01. I guess we'll just get to it. So I figured it would be nice for all of us to kind of get together and chat. And, these are crazy times. Um, it's just, this is a truly once in 100-year pandemic. Um, hey, Maggie. And, it's just a lot of people, we're all uncertain. We're all just kind of freaking out a little bit and just unsure what's going on. And I figured us getting together would be helpful. So we'll talk about a bunch of things, and yeah, we'll let's get to it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was just uh, how to control your eating it while at home. A lot of us now are working from home. We're home just throughout the day. We're not, our normal routines are completely different. And it's important to have some plans in place. And that really is the first thing. I think I was kind of joking around with a friend. I was saying at first it felt like a snow day. Like, to me, there was nothing more thrilling as a child than waking up and finding out it's a snow day. You have no school. You can kind of just hang out. But this obviously isn't a snow day, and we can't just let ourselves go free for however long this lasts. Hopefully, it's not more than, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks. So the first thing is really having a plan for the day. We can't just wing it. I've never let myself get really hungry and said, I'm in the mood for a healthy meal. When I let myself get hungry, which I try not to, but when I let myself get hungry, that is when I start craving all sorts of things. That's when I get all sorts of crazy thoughts, these short-term irrational thoughts. And I always say, like, you can't control what you crave when you're hungry, but you can control how often you eat. So we want to make sure that when you wake up, you have a plan for the day. And really just the act of just thinking through, like, all right, for breakfast, I'm going to have this. For lunch, I'm going to have that. For dinner, I'm going to have this. For my snacks, I'm going to have this. Just helps so much. We all have so much in our mind. And the last thing we need to do and worry about is, like, our food choices. So the more you can kind of automate it and kind of set it and forget it, the better off we'll do. So every morning, I like to wake up. I usually have my same breakfast every day. I'm a creature of habit, but I always think through the day. It really helps tremendously. I also think about what I'm going to have for snacks because, oftentimes, if our dinner, let's say dinner time is a challenging time or the evening is a challenging time, one of the easiest ways to kind of improve that time of day is to go backwards, right? So if dinner is a challenging time, then let's focus on your snack, your mid-afternoon snack. If nighttime is a challenging time, then let's focus on having a more substantial dinner. Oftentimes, when we're overindulging or overeating, it's because the meal before, the snack before, wasn't sufficient enough. And sure, it doesn't cure it all, but it helps tremendously if we're not at least physically hungry. Um, so I just want to make sure you guys can see me and everything. Cool. So that is something we want to make sure we're doing. We want to make sure we're planning the day, we're thinking through what we're going to eat, and also, having those snacks. Again, if the nighttime is challenging, then work backwards. Also, like, I think now that we're all so close to our home kitchens, it's so easy to just kind of get up and just kind of munch and just kind of graze. One thing I really encourage you to do, and this is for always, but even more so now, is before you eat, really just take a deep breath. Give yourself a chance to catch your breath. Again, we're all going kind of a million miles a minute. We all have all these thoughts and concerns and worries. Just take a deep breath, catch yourself, allow yourself to kind of feel how you're feeling, and ask yourself, am I hungry or am I eating to change the way I feel? Am I hungry or am I eating to change the way I feel? Because, oftentimes, we're not, letting, that's funny. Oftentimes we're not letting we're not determining if we're physically hungry or emotionally hungry. We're just eating. And what I want you to do is really pause before you eat. Ask yourself, am I hungry or am I eating to change the way I feel? Am I hungry or am I eating to change the way I feel? And what you'll find is, more often than not, you're not actually physically hungry. You're hungry. You're emotionally hungry. You're hungry for something else, right? And I've shared this before, but it's worth saying again. I call it the broccoli test. But the idea is, if you're hungry for broccoli or any vegetable, then you're hungry for food. But if you're craving something specific, if you have, if you're dying for something, in particular, like, that is emotional hunger. And it's never about the food. It's about what the food allows us to avoid, right? It's never about the food. It's about what the food allows us to avoid. And I really want you to practice that. And this is a perfect time to do that because we have more time. And we're also so close to our kitchens, it's really tricky if we're not careful. So, make sure you're pausing before you eat. And I think another good rule, and something I always do, is just I never let myself eat standing up. There's, with my kids home, and there's snacks and there's meals. Like, it's so easy to just kind of eat their leftover, chicken nugget or whatever it might be, without thinking. But, rarely do we kind of sit down to a bowl of, junk food or whatever you want to call it, or, we kind of just eat it grazingly. So always sit down while you eat. Give yourself a chance to catch your breath. And even more so, I think it's important to step away from your work area and actually sit at your kitchen table. Just give, it's, I think everything is blended now. People working, we're working from home and this and that. So try to eat at your kitchen table. If you're eating at your computer or your desk, it's just much easier to kind of, just be mindless. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So I think if you try those things and actually try them, they're really, really effective. They're foundational behaviors that will impact everything else. So if you're, pausing before you eat, and you're really deciphering if you're actually hungry for food or for something else, it's really, really powerful. Okay. And it'll help a lot. We'll talk more about this, but exercise while at home. So, for most people, the gyms are closed. For me, the gym is my, the gym is my respite. That's where I go. Exercise for me is only for my sanity. It is for my well-being. It's my mental hygiene. It's for my energy, stress relief, and it's really frustrating because I feel like I need it more than ever during these crazy times. But I'm trying to do something. I'm really, really trying to do something every day. And the tricky part is, when we're usual life, we kind of get dressed, we go to a gym or we do something. But here it's like you could be home all day long and it's hard. So something I like to do is, my kind of thing is, I never waste a shower, right? So I try to shower every day. especially during times like this, because it's easy to let a day go by, but that's not good. So I shower every day, and I never waste a shower. And the point is, um, right before I shower, I always do a little exercise. So for me, like what I like to do is I call it the 20 by 4. 20 push-ups, 20 crunches, 20 squats, and 20 jumping jacks. And even just doing that before you shower can go so long. It can go a long way in terms of how you feel. So give yourself something. Practice something. And I think someone wrote, they're using laundry detergent, which is great. There's a million things you can do. But for me, I like to do the 20 by 4, 20 push-ups, 20 crunches, 20 jumping jacks, 20 squats. But you can do anything, and you can get creative. You can even walk in place. I just ordered some jump ropes. I'm going to try doing some jumping rope. There's some videos on YouTube. I mean, there's a million things. Like there's what is it called? Gonoodle, like that I do with my kids, and it's just like these 3 or 4 minute videos. They're silly, they're fun, and we do that. And we just move for 3 or 4 minutes, because one of the things that's important to realize is it's very easy to just sit all day and just not move. I mean, I live in New York City, and I haven't been walking nearly as much as I usually do. So I make sure that I'm moving, I'm getting up. Something that's also helpful, you can set an alarm, right? Just once an hour, you set an alarm, and it forces you to get up. It's a trigger, it reminds you, and it helps a ton. So I think the biggest thing I would recommend, though, in terms of exercise is carving out the time and making the time. And this goes for any time in life, especially now, but you have to set it aside, right? Because just because you're home, and one of the things we want to do in uncertain times, I believe, is, you want to control what you can control, and you want to have as much routine as possible. You want to try to keep some sort of semblance of your normal life. And you have to make the time, and never waste the shower. I think that's really powerful, because you're using the shower kind of as a trigger. It's like, all right, I'm showering. All right, well, before I shower, I'm going to do something. And find whatever you like. It could be some yoga. It could be some breathing exercises. It could be walking in place. It could even be going for a walk. I mean, we're allowed to go outside. We just, can't get too close. I mean, this whole thing is just absolutely mind-boggling, unbelievable. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's truly mind-boggling. But it does not mean we can't go outside. It doesn't mean we can't walk. We just can't be too close to other people. Got to practice that social distancing. So let's try that. Try the don't waste a shower. I think that'll be helpful. So I'm bouncing all around. It's just things I think, people want to hear and talk about. And so, a lot of people are just, there's a lot of anxiety. They're just unsure how to deal with uncertainty. And uncertainty is a really, really uncomfortable thing. And this is just crazy. It's just absolutely mind-boggling what's going on, as I said. So I truly believe the best way to deal with uncertainty is to focus on what you can control. As I always say, one of my mantras is control the controllables, right? And I think often when we feel uncertain, what a lot of us do is we recoil, we hide, and we stop doing everything. I know this is my natural tendency, and I'm aware of it, so I try not to let it happen anymore. But it is my natural tendency, and there is a pull to just kind of recoil. I just want to be in bed, sleep, and just I just don't want to deal with it. But the more we can focus on what we can control and control the controllables, and keep doing what we're able to do, right? We can always focus on our health and fitness, right? We can always focus on our eating. We can always focus on exercise. We can always focus on sleep. We can always focus on input, right? So I think input is something I don't talk about enough, but input is really, really powerful, right? So, hey, Kathy. So input is what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, right? So I like to be well informed. I like to know what's going on. But this weekend I was watching a lot of this Corona stuff, and it was driving me crazy. I was starting to get really anxious. I was freaking out. And I realized because, I was watching it all day long, and, it's like the old, combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, if you're spending a ton of time, listening to something or watching something, that's going to make a huge impact on you. And it's important to control what your input is. So I think it's really important to limit that. Right? Again, I like to be informed. I want to know what's going on, but sometimes the news doesn't serve you. Sometimes the news is only going to create more anxiety for you, more stress. And honestly, if you're not going to act on the news, if there's nothing to do, then perhaps it's best to just take a news diet, so to speak, or just restrict the news a little bit. I think, hi Laura, thanks for joining. I think, I've one of the things I think about and I laugh at is like, I love murder mysteries. I love watching like a good Dateline or a good 48 Hours, on the weekends, just a low key weekend or whatever. And I find that when I watch a lot of them, I start to get paranoid. I start to freak out. I'm like, everyone's trying to kill people. And that's because I'm watching all these murder mysteries, right? So again, not to beat a dead horse, but the point is, control your input. Control what you can control: your diet, your exercise, your sleep, how you spend your time. Yeah, keep that in mind. I think it's important to understand what your natural tendency is, right? So if your natural tendency is to do nothing or recoil because you get anxious or stressed or whatever it is, understand that, but embrace that discomfort, because the easy thing to do is to just recoil and hide. The harder thing to do is try to maintain your normal schedule, or at least as much as you possibly can. So try that. I mean, even also like set a schedule, right? Most people, Monday through Friday, even on the weekends, but Monday through Friday especially, they have a schedule, right? They wake up at a certain time, they get ready for work, they go out of the door, they're at work all day, they get lunch or they bring lunch, they go home. Like, it's important to set a schedule even if you're home. That will help you deal with the uncertainty. Again, you want to try to maintain as much of a routine and schedule as possible, because otherwise you're going to just go crazy and you're just going to lose it altogether. So try that. How to deal with anxiety. So for me, I find, again, it's a lot of it is my input. So I really control my input. I make sure I'm listening and watching and reading inspiring things. I make sure I'm doing inspiring things, right? So I always feel better after exercise, and that's why I'm making it a point to get some sort of exercise every day. But ultimately, what I've found is anxiety is really just kind of experiencing the worst thing that can possibly happen before it actually happens, right? You're just thinking about this. You're ruminating on it over and over before it actually happens. And what I've realized is, when you're anxious, typically you're not doing anything but thinking, right? There's no action. And ultimately what I found is action is what cures anxiety, right? I've never felt overwhelmed or anxious when I'm actually putting my head down, getting stuff done. It's only when I'm thinking about everything. And again, that is a natural default for many people, is to just kind of think and freeze. But if you can just be aware of that and say, you know what, I'm going to push forward anyway, I'm going to do some sort of action, it really will help you tremendously. The more you can take action, the better. I always say action cures anxiety, right? I've never felt overwhelmed when I'm, focused on my work and doing stuff. It's only when I'm thinking about everything that needs to get done. And really what emotional eating is we're kind of thinking about everything that's bothering us, right? It could be what's frustrating us, what's disappointing us, what's, what, I can't read the comments because it's distracting me, but it's fun to watch. It's emotional eating is really eating to change the way we feel, right? Whether we're stressed, we're anxious, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed. But the only way to get over emotional eating for the long term, and like the only way, is to actually deal with whatever it is that's bothering us, right? So let's say you're stress eating or you're emotional eating, and you're stress eating because let's say your boss is being a jerk or whatever it is, or you just have a lot to do. If you're not taking action on what's actually bothering you, that's when you're going to want to like eat. But if you take action and you deal with everything that is bothering you with what is within your control, then you will find that the cravings and the desire to overeat and indulge will go away. As I always say, it is much easier to face your stuff than stuff your face. And if we don't face our stuff, if we don't deal with whatever it is that's going on, that's when our desire to eat is going to greatly increase. Okay. So, action cures anxiety. Like it's so important. It's so powerful, and it's kind of easy to nod along. But if you ever deal with anxiety, I challenge you to figure out what's actually bothering you. That's another thing. So one of the things I like to say is, like, you remember the Staples commercials? They had a magic easy button, and it was, I always like to say, like, if you can have a magic easy button, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things you'd use it for? And sometimes just identifying exactly what you're anxious about or exactly what you're stressed about is super helpful, because we realize our entire life isn't necessarily stressful or like just awful. It's usually just a few things. And if you can kind of compartmentalize it and say, all right, it's A, B, and C versus I just feel like a ball of stress, it's much easier to take action on what is actually bothering you. So I like to use the magic easy button exercise. It's like, all right, if I can use the magic easy button right now, what are the 2 or 3 things I'd use it for? And it really helps a lot. And then again, I would challenge you to deal with those things. And if you can't deal with those things, then it really is a matter of, okay, well, how can I learn to kind of accept what is? Because as I wrote about a week ago or so, one of my mantras is, if you can't change what is, you might as well love what is. Otherwise, you're going to suffer, right? If you can't change what is, you might as well love what is. Otherwise, you're going to suffer. And the point is, like, we can't change this coronavirus. We can't change what's going on right now. But we can focus on other things. We can focus on our actions. We can focus on what we do on a daily basis. So try to keep that in mind. Another thing that really helps is, I like to say LOL. Laughing out loud is really, really, of course, amazing and important. But living out loud is super important. I think a lot of people just kind of keep all this stuff bottled up in their head. They don't really share it with anyone. And if you have someone to share it with, it's really powerful. So the more you can live out loud, the more you can let your thoughts and your anxiety kind of breathe a little bit, the better you'll feel. There's no question about it, because, if you're just letting this stuff, run around in your head, it's going to drive you crazy. I always say our mind is designed to think of new things versus the same things over and over, right? And if you find yourself thinking about the same things over and over, then I would encourage you to write everything you're feeling out. Just let it out, let it breathe. And sure, just writing it out, like, doesn't solve it, but it helps a little bit. It takes the intensity of those feelings away drastically. So write it out, identify exactly what it is that is bothering you, and try to take action. And then, I shared this exercise last week too, but it's really powerful, is, write out a list, right? Let's say you have one list of everything that is on your mind that's bothering you. Okay, just let it all out, do a brain dump, everything that's on your mind that's bothering you, and then make another list of everything on that list that you can actually control, and just focus on that list. Because what's the point of controlling, what's the point of focusing on what you can't control? It's just going to make you suffer. It truly is just going to make you suffer, and there's no reason to suffer, right? I feel like life is a lot easier, and more manageable if you focus on what you can actually control. So I would love for you to try that. I think it'll help a lot. Yeah, the next thing, my Corona challenge. I was joking. I think, like, there's just going to be this an exorbitant amount of people that gain the Corona 15, as I called it. And I think it's still early on in this challenge, so to speak. And hopefully it doesn't last for more than, 8 to 12 weeks. But I think it's important to kind of decide right now how you want to let this impact you and where you want to be at the end of this. Do you want to be stronger and leaner in 2 to 3 months? Or is this going to be another thing that gets the best of you? And I understand this is kind of an extenuating thing, but it is going to be another thing that derails your progress, that derails your health and fitness. Um, I think kind of going into it, um, with the idea of, all right, I'm not going to let this impact me. Like one client told me, which I loved, she said, I'm not going to end this um, epidemic or pandemic weighing more, right? I'm not going to end this weighing more. Like her goal, that is her goal. Um, and one of the things like I go back to is my youngest son was born very premature. He was, born at 29 weeks instead of a full 40 weeks. Um, so, hi, Trevina, thanks. Um, he was born at 29 weeks. It was very overwhelming. It was a really, really scary time for us. But one of my goals, and this is like day one, was, once I realized like, all right, we're going to be in this hospital for, 3 to 4 months every single day. We're going to be essentially living here. Um, you know, was I'm going to be when this is over, I'm going to be in better shape than when I am right now. And it wasn't like I just needed some sort of goal. And I also realized that if I did that, it would help me deal with and handle like the scariest time in my life by far, and the most power. I've never felt more powerless in my life. Um, at that time, it helped me tremendously, and that was my goal. I didn't like. I was with my son every single day. Thankfully, he's fine now. He just turned 3. I mean, it's crazy. He was born on January 21st, and he got out of the hospital on March 31st. So, I mean, he still would be in the hospital considering January 21st, which feels like a lifetime ago already. And my goal, though, every single day, I went to the gym. I, exercised. I ate healthfully. Like I was not going to let that be a reason to just let myself go, because I knew it would not let me be the best version of myself. And as hard as it was for me, it was even harder for my wife. I mean, she birthed this thing like it's, I think there's just, there was just, it was really, really hard. And I wanted to be as strong as I possibly could for my wife, for my other son, like for everyone. And it's really important that you allow yourself and enable yourself to be the best version of yourself. Because otherwise, like you're not going to be able to think clearly. You're not going to be able to, be there for anyone else. And for many of us who have, people who depend on us, it's really, really important. And I always like say, like, a lot of us are stressed and we have a lot going on, and we use that as a reason to let ourselves go. But I like to reframe it. To me, it's like we have so many people counting on us that we have to be the best version of ourselves. I have too much responsibility to not be the best version of myself. It's unfair to everyone else. And of course, the twist is I like myself when I'm taking care of myself. But the hard part is sometimes what makes us feel our best doesn't always feel best in the moment. What makes us happy doesn't always feel happy in the moment. But I always, when I'm the best version of myself, sure, it takes work, it takes effort, but it's worth it. I mean, I always say, like, you can either exist, you can live, or you can thrive. And, ask anyone who's thriving. I mean, they really enjoy it, but of course it takes work, it takes effort, but it's so worth it. So my challenge to you, though, is really decide how you want to be at the end of this at the end of this whole thing. I guess the hard part is we don't know when the end is, but I didn't really know when the end was with my son. I mean, we could have been in the hospital way after his birth date, way after his due date. It could have been 6 months. I mean, thankfully we got out, in 70 days. But I made a decision, and no matter what, I decided that I was going to get out of that hospital, in better shape, because I just knew it would allow me to handle it better. Because I felt so powerless with that. I needed to control what I could control. And again, so many people, in times like this, in times of uncertainty, in times of crazy times at work, they stop doing everything. They stop doing what they're able to control most. And if you go back to the fundamentals and really double down on them, it helps you deal with everything so much better. And I think perhaps right now when you're rational, you might feel a little motivated. It's easy to say, yes, I agree, that makes sense. But let's say it's day 20 of this, or day 30, like, you start getting a little crazy. You start going, thinking irrationally. Then in that moment, you're like, that's when you're natural self might kind of want to stop doing those things, but you can't let yourself do that because it's going to drive you crazy. It's not going to let you handle it better. So focus on the fundamental things. This is so much more than weight loss to me. This is so much more than just fitness. To me, this is about realizing your full potential. And I really believe that, when you realize your body's full potential, it enables you to realize your overall potential. And to me, the best part is when you conquer yourself, you feel like you can conquer the world. But going back to what, the point here is decide how you want to end this thing. Is this going to be another thing that kind of derails you? Or is this going to be the thing that says, you know what? I stuck it through this corona, virus scare, whatever we call this. And it kind of propelled me because it made it even easier for me. And that's my next thing, which I think you guys will like. So I call it my weighted bat approach to life. If you follow baseball at all, or baseball, before baseball players go up to bat, they put weights on their bat, right? So they have a little bat, or they have a big bat, and they put weights on the bat, right? So there's weights on the bat, and they take a bunch of swings with the weights on the bat before they're up to the plate. And by doing this, it makes the bat feel so much lighter when they're actually up to bat. So that, they take a bunch of swings with this weight. It's a weighted bat, and then when they're up to bat, they take the weight off, and it's much easier. So what if you had a reframe of this and said, you know what? If I can get through this, or when I get through this, everyday life is going to feel so much easier once this is over. Like, this is going to be the hardest it's ever going to be. So if I get through this, it's only going to be easier. I think having reframes is really powerful, because to me, life is, or a lot of life is how we think about it. And you might as well think in a way that serves you. And why not reframe? If you have two people, one who thinks about something that makes themselves miserable, and the other who can think about something and make themselves happier, go with what's going to obviously make you feel the best. But I thought I would share some weird ways I kind of used the weighted bat approach in life. So like when I used to work for Ernst & Young, what was it, 15 years ago? So I worked there for 2 years. And my goal was to never take public. It's not that I have anything wrong with it. I just wanted to be able to walk. So it was blocks. It was 30 blocks from my apartment to Ernst & Young's headquarters in Times Square. And it was a long walk. It was about, I think, 20 or so minutes. But the first 2 weeks, and I know this is going to sound really weird, but I actually left even earlier, and I walked an extra 15 blocks. And the reason I did that was because after I did that, the 30 blocks that I walked felt so easy, right? So I went from walking 45 blocks for a few weeks to 30 blocks, and it felt super easy. Another thing is, I wanted to start waking up at 6 a.m. every day. So instead of waking up at 6 a.m., I actually woke up at 5 a.m. for 2 weeks straight. And it was really, really hard to wake up at 5 a.m. But the whole point was I really wanted to wake up at 6 a.m. So when I woke up at 6 a.m. after 2 weeks, I woke up at 5 a.m. for 2 weeks. And then after that, I went back to 6 a.m. Like waking up at 6 a.m. felt like I was sleeping in. It was super easy, right? That's the weighted bat, like waking up at 5 a.m., walking the extra 15 blocks. Another is I like to, and this is driving me, there is a gym in my building, and there's treadmills, and I enjoy the treadmill, and I wanted to start doing that every day. I actually started doing. My grandma was in hospice care. My sister and me were there. It was really tough. We were there for like a week. It was awful. It was actually longer. But I had to exercise every day. Like again, going back to like just controlling the controllables, doing what makes me feel my best. And one of my goals was like, all right, I'm going to start running every day. But when I was there, I started with 45 minutes, and it was really long. It was hard, and I walked some of it. I ran, but my only goal was to get to 20 minutes. And once after I did 45 minutes for a week, 20 minutes felt so easy. So think about how you can do this in life, right? If I'm trying to really heavy weights, sometimes I'll go even heavier for a few more. There's a million ways where you can if you have a goal, let's say you want to read for 20 minutes a day or 20 pages a day, start with 30 pages a day for a week, and 20 pages will feel much easier. Essentially, you're making it a little harder for a week or two. If people pledge to fraternity or sorority, it's called they have this thing called Hell Week. You're essentially giving yourself a Hell Week where it's just super hard, and then you let off a little bit, and it feels easier. And my point is, though, let this be your weighted bat. I'll say, when we get through this, everyday life is going to feel so much easier. It feels so much easier. Yeah, try that reframe. I think it'll be powerful. So what else did I write? I wrote, what was Zaza Gabor's husband? So this is kind of funny, actually. And it still stuck with me. That's how impactful it was on me. But many years ago, actually watching some sort of reality show, some sort of auction show. So Zaza Gabor's husband, or Zaza Gabor, I think that's how you pronounce it. She passed away. Her husband was trying to sell a piano of this fancy piano, and a ton of money. It was some sort of I think it might have been Frank Sinatra. I don't know if that's right, but it was some sort of famous person's piano that Zaza had. She passed away. The husband wanted to sell it to an auction, and going back and forth. I want X amount. To give him less, and they finally settled. I think, and he thought it was worth $3 million. Might as well be happy, because he goes, I know I'm not going to get more for you, and I sell it. So he goes, I might as well be happy with the $1 million. And it sounds crazy, like this whole Zaza Gabor thing, but I really that. Just really impacted me, because it's true. If he knows he's only $1 million, and essentially, if that's the reality, might as well be happy with it, because if he can't get more, then what's the point of fighting it? And I always think about that, that expression, might as well be happy, because what's the alternative? You're crying over spilled milk. You're fighting reality. You might as well be happy. You might as well be happy or accept things you can't control. Because again, the more you fight it, the more you suffer. And that's where we're trying to get away from, because when you're suffering, that's when we tend to use food, right? And it comes full circle. So a lot of this, I talk, rarely do I don't talk all that much about, diet, like eat 10 blueberries, eat this magic food, because the reason we're eating in general, the reason we're overeating in general, is because it's not about the food. It's about what the food allows us to avoid. And it's all about what's going on between our ears. So again, might as well be happy. I don't know. That just really stuck with me. I think about it all the time. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It's like, listen, sure, I would much rather have my normal routine. I'd much rather be going to the gym. I'd much rather be seeing my friends. I'd much rather, might be experiencing some internet slowdown. Oh no. Wait, is it better now? Ooh, I might have to move. Is it clearing up? All right, I'll keep going. I'll honor the comments here. But listen, I'd much rather life be normal, right? I'd much rather be normal. I'd much rather see my friends. I'd much rather my kids be going to school. I'd much rather. All right, it's getting better. Good. All right, I'd much rather, everything be the way it was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. But okay. But I can't change that, so I might as well love it, right? I might as well love being home with my kids all day, and of course I do. And but it's challenging, right? We're all facing challenges right now, so keep that in mind. All right. Another thing. So a lot of people have been telling me, there's just a lot of fear at home, right? So one of the things I would like you to really try doing is identifying what you're actually fearful of. Like, really, what are you fearful of? And I think sometimes it's easy to say that. It's easy to say we're stressed or we're anxious or overwhelmed. But the more you can identify exactly what it is and actually write it out, the better. I touched on this before, but I just wanted to make sure I addressed it because there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people feeling overwhelmed. And the more you really, identify it and, just let it breathe a little bit, the better. Okay. So I challenge you, if you're feeling fearful, write out exactly what it is you're fearful of. Just write it out. Here's the difference, right? There's some people that are going to say, all right, you know what? That sounds good. And they nod their head. But then people that are actually going to do it. Okay. It'll help tremendously. So I really recommend actually doing it. So try that. All right. So other reframes. Listen, this is a really, really challenging time for all of us. We're stuck at home. We can't really do much. How can you reframe it, right? So to me, it's like, we have more time, so much opportunity to kind of pursue things we perhaps always wanted to pursue. More reading, more precious time with our children, more learning, whatever it might be. So I would encourage you to find the silver lining. And in terms of health and fitness, this is the biggest interrupt there ever was, right? So most people are, going a million miles a minute, right? They're going a million miles a minute every day. They wake up, they rush to work, they finally get there. They're doing work, they feel overwhelmed and stressed. They get home, and then it's just crazy until bedtime. And then at bedtime, they finally have some time, some sort of time to themselves to relax. Now, the biggest pattern interrupt ever was that is totally gone now. That craziness is gone now. So for many people, it's like the joke, I had a great breakfast. I had some eggs and spinach for breakfast. I had a wonderful salad for lunch. I had some almonds for a snack. And then we get home, we eat 10,000 calories, right? And that's because the overwhelm of the day just finally gets us, right? I would like to say, there's this energy that builds up. And, when we're kind of going through it, we don't really have time to do anything about it. But when things finally slow down, all this energy just takes its toll on us. And this is one reason why I believe exercise is so important, or movement in general, is because that energy has to go somewhere. And if you don't exercise, you're going to wind up eating that energy. But that's gone now. Like that whole mad dash of getting out the door in the morning, coming home in the evening, making dinner, whatever it might be, like that's totally different now. So evening is a really challenging time. Like, let's use this as a pattern interrupt, and let's use it to kind of establish new behaviors, new patterns. Okay. And that's for most people, this is their the challenging time of day is the evening and early evening, right? And late evening, like just anytime after work, essentially. And it all stems from what happened during the day. And sure, if you're still working and you're still, dealing with people, that's stressful, but it's in a very different environment. And we might as well take advantage of that. So perhaps you have time now to do some meal prep. Perhaps you have time to prepare your snack. Perhaps you have time to start cooking something at 4 o'clock. So it's ready at dinner time. Take advantage of this time. And again, how are you going to come out of this? Let's say it's 8-10 weeks. I mean, no one knows how long this is going to be, but how are you going to come out of this? Smarter, stronger. Like, to me, I think thinking about this now is really important. However, I will say this. I think it's really important to have some self-compassion with yourself, because, it's really easy. There's been all these funny memes and jokes. It's like all these, parents now, like we're homeschooling now, we're trying to teach our kids. It's like, all right, at 8, they're going to do this. At 9, they're going to do that. Like at 9, they're going to do this. At 9:30, they're going to do this. And like very quickly, it's not realistic, and that's not doable. And it's important to have self-compassion that, like, you still need time to yourself. You still need time to unwind. You're not a robot. You're not a robot. it's important to give yourself some time. Um, Javini, I like your question. We'll talk about that. And for some people, it is more hectic now. Um, but yeah, so have some self-compassion. My point is, we have all these goals and all these, dreams for us, perhaps, but also be realistic with yourself too. Okay, because just because you have more time doesn't mean you're automatically going to be able to do everything. There's certainly a more time, and try to take advantage of it, but also don't, beat yourself up if you can't do everything you wanted to. So we talked about the pattern interrupt. My favorite word in the entire world is resilience. I think resilience is the key to success every facet of life. Those who are resilient succeed. And it's fascinating because every one of you is resilient in so many aspects of your life. For some reason, when it comes to our health and fitness, the second it gets challenging, the second it gets difficult, we want to give up. And I think it's because it's just, food serves us in some way, right? And we use food, to, we use food to soothe ourselves. We use food to numb ourselves. So it's challenging. I challenge you to work on your resilience muscle. And the resilience muscle here is many of us are recovering or are perfectionists. I'm certainly a recovering perfectionist. And perfectionists, as a perfectionist, it's so much easier and more comfortable to say, you know what, well, I can't be perfect. Why bother now? I'll wait until this is all over. But what I want to challenge you to do is say, and ultimately is, I want you to get comfortable being less than perfect. I want you to get comfortable being less than perfect. The most successful people I know are comfortable being less than perfect when it comes to health and fitness. Now, I'm not saying a perfectionist is a bad thing, right? I want my surgeon to be a perfectionist. I want, certain people in my life to be perfectionists. But when it comes to our health and fitness, if it doesn't serve you, then there's no reason to be a perfectionist. It's hurting you. And for so many people, they're going to use this as a reason or as an excuse to kind of let them. And I want to challenge you. Get being comfortable being less than perfect, right? It's so easy to just stick with it when you're perfect, but that is not real life. That's not possible. That's not sustainable. So practice being comfortable being less than perfect. Okay, so that could be, well, for some people it's like, well, if I can't have my perfect workout, then I'm not going to eat well. Or if I can't eat well or exactly the way I want to, then I'm not going to do anything, right? And that's the perfectionist in us that want to let ourselves off the hook. But again, it's so powerful when you say, you know what, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to practice being resilient. I'm going to practice being comfortable, because ultimately this is about sticking with it no matter what. And it's so much easier and more effective to go, let's say, 80 miles an hour versus 100 miles an hour only to, right? Because if you're only going 100 miles an hour and you only kind of go when you can go all, then you're going to burn out. That's not sustainable, right? I mean, many of us are recovering perfectionists or are perfectionists. Think back to the last time you tried to be perfect. What happened? As soon as you couldn't be perfect, you let yourself off the hook. You quit, and then you waited a few weeks or a few months. You got motivated again, and you started something over. And then as soon as something inevitably happened, then you gave up, you quit it, right? So get comfortable being less than perfect. There is no better time, I think, ever than right now to practice that, right? So just because you can't eat exactly the way you want doesn't mean you can't eat healthy. Just because you can't exercise the way you want doesn't mean you can't do some sort of exercise. And for some people, I think for a few people, be like, sure, duh. But for a lot of us, I mean, I'm talking to myself as well. Like, this is really powerful stuff, and it's easy to nod our head. But I challenge you, when you feel yourself thinking, well, if I can't be perfect, again, practice being comfortable, being less than perfect. It's super powerful. And my most successful clients, this is what we work on. Like, this is what they understand, is what they've kind of adopted in terms of their mentality. Okay. Um, so talked about that, and then again, obviously the flexibility, right? And this kind of goes with what we just talked about. Um, you know, the perfectionist says, well, I can't have the perfect meal. I can't have my usual X, or I can't have my usual Y. But again, that is the perfectionist mentality. Instead, challenge yourself to be more flexible, right? Just because you can't have the exact meal you want doesn't mean you can't eat healthy. All right. All right, we'll get to some questions. So some people email me questions, so we'll talk about these first. And then if you have any questions in the chat, we'll go with it. So I absolutely love this question. So Vicky wrote me, as many restaurants are closing to only takeout, and this breaks my heart. I have a lot of friends who own restaurants. This is scary how how people are going to survive. But as many restaurants are closing only to takeout, their source of income is cut drastically. My husband and I are choosing to support them with takeout once a week. I'd like to hear you talk about planned indulgences during this difficult time. FYI, we normally don't eat out, but feel compelled to do so now to help our community. I love that. I mean, I think that's extremely generous. That's wonderful. We're trying to do the same thing. So here's a few things. First off, just because you're ordering takeout does not mean you have to order diligently, right? One of my favorite reframes, we have some people who constantly travel, is, eating at restaurants, again, does not have to equal indulging, right? Think about it this way. You have and who will make you essentially anything you want, right? And there's no food shopping, there's no prep, there's no cooking, there's no cleaning, there's no anything. You just sit there, you order something off of me. Typically, sometimes you can customize it, but you have a private chef. So just because, I think I want to make it clear, I think it is amazing. We're doing the same thing. We're trying to support all, as a business owner and a small business, like this is a scary time for everyone. So we're trying to support everyone we can as well. But just because you're supporting them does not mean it has to impact your health, right? You can still order healthy food and it'll still be absolutely delicious. And I know perhaps it might be a waste to order in healthy, but I do it sometimes absolutely exhausted. And, I want to, I want to eat healthy, but I don't have the time or the effort to make something. So I'll order in something healthy. Now, to answer your question, talk about indulgences. So generally, my thinking on indulgences is really variable. It's think about it this way. Many years ago, Oprah actually had this show where she gave people, I think it was $10,000 to give to charity, but the rule was they had to give it away to 3 charities. So they got $10,000. They had to give it away to charity. I don't know if anyone remembers the show. It was on for a little bit. It didn't obviously succeed. But the point is, that's how we want to be with our indulgences. It's not a question of if you can indulge. It's a question of when. And to me, changing it from if to when is really powerful. And the idea is, again, it's not if, but when. And you're allowing yourself 2 to 3 indulgences per week, right? And the idea is that we want to choose something that is so good we can't help remember it but in 2 weeks, right? So we've all, well, I won't say we all, but I'm sure many of us, but probably all of us, have eaten that, bag of chips or the bag of cookies or whatever it is. We don't even remember that, day, right? Sometimes we don't even remember it the same day, right? To me, that's not a worthwhile indulgence. For me, my goal is, I hate snobs, but we want to be almost snobbish when it comes to indulgences. We want it to be so good. We want it to be amazing that we help, but remember it in 2 weeks. So that's the rule number 1. And, number 2 is, again, this isn't about a never indulgence. That's not sustainable or desirable. So we want to make sure that we are allowing ourselves to indulge. And in fact, it's important to indulge because the goal here is to be fit and happy, not fit and miserable. And I think 2 to 3 indulgences per week is a really good balance, because ultimately this is about living for today versus living for tomorrow, right? And if we're only living for today, then obviously we're not going to be happy. We're not going to like the way we look. We're not going to like the way we feel. Our health is going to be terrible. And if we're only living for tomorrow, and we're kind of constantly foregoing these indulgences and things like that, just never allowing ourselves to enjoy things, then we're going to be miserable. So there has to be a balance. And I find, and many people have found, that the 2 to 3 indulgences per week is really powerful, and it really allows you to kind of buckle in for your routine meals. Okay, and that's the idea. We want to make the most of routine meals, right? So Vicky, if you're ordering in once or twice a week, you have so many other meals that you can be super healthy at. And if you want to indulge for those 2 meals or 1 meal, go for it. And there's nothing to worry about, if you're making most of your routine meals. So another way to think about this also, and for some people, I think the idea of indulgences really throws them off. You have to think of it this way. Like, first off, this is a choice by choice journey, not a day by day journey, right? And you can kind of think of it that way, the sooner you can get out of that perfectionist mentality. Because again, so many perfectionists, it's like, well, I indulged already, the day is shot. So I would encourage you to think about it this way. Let's say you eat 5 times a day, right? And you eat days a week. So that's 35 meals or snacks or food or times you're going to eat per week. So it's 35 times instances per week. What is that? 70, 140 times per month, let's say. So if you have 1 or 2 indulgences or 2 or 3 indulgences per week, depending on how crazy you go, that's nothing, right? But the point is, you're not going to let 1 or 2 or 3 instances out of 35 impact the other 32, right? And I think thinking about it in those numbers versus just days is way easier, and it makes it easier to get right back on track, right? You're not going to throw away 33, meals for 2 or 3 other meals. Like and I think thinking of it like that is easier. So hopefully that answers your question. And yeah. I work best when I have things to look forward to. This is a really good question. Travel, events, etc., or few goals to achieve. Right now, it feels like we can't make any goals or plans, so I'm just hanging. I'm just left hanging. What are some carrots we can put out there for ourselves to help pull us forward? So I think that is the hardest part of this, is we don't know when this is going to end. And you're probably not going to love this answer. Good. I'm glad that helped, Vicky. But here's the thing, right? Like, ultimately, to me, this is all about feeling as good as we possibly can, right? Like, like what keeps me going every single day is I want to feel as good as I can, right? And I think the best way to do that is to focus on my actions. Eating well, exercising, my input, how I treat people, attitude, right? And if I focus on those things, it's going to help me be the best version of myself. It's going to feel as good as I can. So let's take away the future events. Let's take those away for a minute. To me, again, the goal is, and I would want for you, is to feel as good as you possibly can each day, right? And I understand it's important to have things to look forward to, and I think the secret to happiness is things to look forward to. And I think the secret, one of the secret goals is working towards something. But if you're only for events, then what happens if there's no events, right? In this case, and I think, like, for me, again, the goal is I want to feel as good as I can right now in the present. So I'm trying to really focus. It's like Kobe Bryant recently passed away, and I'm sure you've seen stuff about him. And essentially, this guy was obsessed with the process. He was obsessed with getting better. He was obsessed with the work. I think he said that in his retirement speech, actually. He was obsessed with the work. Like, that was the dream. That's what he said. He said the work was the dream. That, getting better, and practicing every day was what he loved, and that he was so good. And to that point, it's like, if we focus on, or let our carrot be how we feel when our head hits the pillow at the end of the day, or how we feel first thing in the morning when we think about the prior day, then I think you become unstoppable. Because if you have that combined with future events, then you're unbeatable. So I would encourage you to really focus on how you want to feel each and every day, right? I always say good food, good mood, right? Motion creates positive emotions. I keep going with these corny things, but the point is, um, when we take care of ourselves, we ultimately feel better. That is the reward. And if we let that be the reward, everything else is a wonderful side effect. Now, to answer your question, how do you essentially you're saying you need carrots, right? You need some motivators to kind of keep you going. Um, so here's the thing: watch something in September or July or August. Perhaps it might be. I hope it doesn't. We don't want to go through this hopefully all that much longer. But why not book something for yourself? But again, the most powerful thing is to be motivated by feeling good, by motivated by feeling your best. Um, I think that makes you unstoppable. Another thing also is short-term rewards. So, I think one of the reasons why many people, including myself, sometimes use food is because we don't have enough. We have as many. I'm sorry, we don't have enough treats. We don't have enough rewards for ourselves. And if food is our only reward, then it becomes much harder to give it up. So I would encourage you to have weekly rewards and daily rewards. So one of my daily rewards is I love nothing more than sitting on my couch and watching some garbage TV. It just helps me clear my mind. It helps me just not think about anything. And that's the thing I look forward to every single day. I put on my comfortable sweatpants, my comfortable little sweatshirt I put on, and like I love it, and I look forward every day. And that's something that to me is like that signals good job today, like, and I look forward to it. So, Philip, I would encourage you to think about things you can, look forward to on a daily basis, and on a weekly basis. It could be a movie. Obviously, right now it's a little more challenging, but what can you figure out, or what can you do what can you do that you would look forward to on a daily or weekly basis? One of the things I love is helping people rediscover their passions. And now that we're adults, perhaps we have a little more money to throw to that passion. I love Legos. I love building Legos. I mean, one of the most crazy things to me, or not crazy, but there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing my son play with Legos. Like, my younger one, perhaps we'll get into it. My oldest one loves it, and it's just like crazy because I see myself in him, and it's cute. But I love Legos. So I've been buying these like expert level Lego sets, and it's super fun, and it's so much fun, and I love it. And it reminds me of being a kid, and it's harder, and it's more intricate, and I love it, and I'm 100% focused on it when I'm doing it. So there's something you can look forward to. Our kids are at home; they don't have as many things to look forward to, but we're setting things each day to look forward to, right? So, my son, they love their shows, whatever it is. Like, we set things up. So I would encourage you to do that. Perhaps I'm rambling a little bit, so I will cut that answer there. So again, I think try to enjoy the process. I'm not sure if that was helpful. I hope it was, though. Uh, Jenny said, "What meals can I eat that are non-perishable? I don't want to go to the grocery store. Just want to order non-perishable online." Um, all right. I hope that was helpful. So non-perishable food. So the first thing I will say that is this, and we'll end this soon. I don't want to keep you guys too long, and hopefully you're getting back. But even if you can't control what you eat right now, you can still control how much you eat, and you can still control how you eat, right? So I know, for some people not have certain foods, or they might not be able to get the foods they typically love. Again, going back to the whole resiliency and being flexible. But you can still control how much you eat. You can still how you eat, and this is a perfect time to practice eating slowly, to practice taking sips of water between bites. That's funny. I'm laughing at your comment. To practice putting utensils down between bites, like this is a perfect time. What was I just saying? Oh, so focus on that. In terms of non-perishable foods, though, I mean, whatever. I guess like you're looking for specific foods. So it's nuts. Beans are great. Pasta is fine. Um, you know, um, Pasta's fine. Like as long like what else? Tuna is great. What else? Eggs, I guess. And eggs last a long time though. I mean, I've been living on eggs. Um, I think beans, tuna fish, eggs. Um, what else? I'm drawing a blank here. Nuts are always good. Nut butter is great. I love butter on a rice cake. Try this; it's really good. Nut butter. I don't really eat it as much as I used to because my son is allergic to nuts. But peanut butter or almond butter, he can't. He's allergic, so I have almond butter. But almond butter or peanut butter on a rice cake or celery with a little cinnamon on it, it's delicious. But celery is perishable, so that's not going to work. Um, yeah, I mean frozen foods, of course. I'm thinking imperishable, but yeah, I mean as long as you have a freezer, which everyone does. So yeah, I mean you can buy all these things in the frozen section. Um, so yeah, but again, don't focus. Like again, this is a perfect time to focus on what you can control. And if getting certain foods is hard, don't worry about that. At least practice how you're eating, why you're eating. Be more eating in general, right? I mean, I've been really trying to focus on that a lot. Yeah, carry out some brown rice, quinoa, frozen veggies. Um, all good choices. Um, I think tuna is great again. Um, I mean, again, no, try to focus on what you're able to, and this is a perfect time. Karen said, "Oh God, I've heard rumors that from Blasio, that is the New York City mayor, and other sources that food rationing might occur. Also, that the pandemic may not be solved for 12 to 18 months, or until reliable vaccination is used." Um, so I have some smart friends who are in the know. Um, I mean, I don't know. They said that there's food. There's plenty of food. This is not about food rationing. There's plenty of food, so I don't think we need to worry about that. Um, I'm not too concerned about that. If it's 12 to 18 months, I mean, I've heard all sorts of things. I've heard that this, could be a few months. I've heard that this is going to come back in the fall. Um, Thanks, Kathy. Nice to finally meet you. Um, yeah, I've heard there's plenty of food in the supply chain. Yeah, that's not a concern. Um, what was I just saying? I keep reading these comments. So I've heard this is something that might come back in the fall, and this is something we're gonna have to deal with. But again, I think all we can do is focus on what you can control, and again, you don't have to worry about food. That's not going to be an issue. Um, so, uh, um, oh, and then you have more quote for those of us with restricted diets and just in general. How do we start to prepare? How do we prepare to stay on plan if the food we eat that gives us health isn't available? For example, people may stock up on rice and beans, but I can't eat either. Again, I don't think that's going to be an issue, and I still would challenge you to focus on what you can control, right? Like focus on what you can eat, focus on how you eat, focus on why you're eating. Most things out there only focus on what you're eating. I would challenge you again: why, how, um, and why and how. Yeah, and when. So that will help. Um, when that is my cousin from Long Island. I love you, buddy. I think it's so cool that you joined us. I hope you're learning a little bit. And he's trying to be funny and he's making me laugh. Um, what's up, buddy? All right. My cousin. I'm sorry. That's my nephew. That is my nephew. That is my kid's cousin, who they love, who they adore and talk about all the time. So, all right. Sandra has a really good question. There's very little food at the stores here, and we aren't supposed to be leaving our houses here in Kentucky. It feels like this is all hard work and retraining my brain for nothing. How do I make the best out of things when the only choice is bad food? All right. So first off, retraining my brain for nothing. So I understand what you mean, but I also will challenge you to say, um, when you retrain your brain, that's something that you'll have for the rest of your life. That is a skill that you have for the rest of your life. And to my point earlier, um, kind of the way to bad approach to life. Imagine how much it's going to be. Imagine how much easier this is going to be when this is all over. It's never for nothing. It's never for nothing. If you can get through this, then you can get through anything. Um, Reminds me of I don't know if you ever saw any of you guys ever saw the movie Dodgeball. He goes, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything. If you can get through this, you can get through anything. So it's definitely not for nothing. And in fact, it's like it's a weighted bat. It's making it harder, and that's going to be easier. And again, if you can't get certain foods, then here's the question: what would Sandra 1.0 do? Sandra 1.0 would say, well, I can't get the certain foods, so I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and I'm going to eat however much I want, and I'll start fresh when this is all over. Now, Sandra 2.0 is going to say, all right, well, the food choices aren't ideal, but I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to control how much I eat. I'm going to control when I eat. I'm going to control why I'm going to be aware of why I'm eating. Okay. And that's all we can do, right? If you can't get certain foods, I do think, a lot of these stores, I think this weekend was the peak of it because everyone kind of felt like they were going to be indoors. But now, as I will, yes, if people like this, I will do it again. Thanks, Vicky. But I don't think it's going to be. Hopefully, the stores aren't as bad. And I think now that people know they can kind of run out quickly. I think this weekend was just a mad dash. So I don't know. Again, focus on what you can control, and I think this is definitely not for nothing. And imagine how much easier it's going to be. All right, that's everything I talked about here. Is there anything you guys want to talk about in the chat that I haven't addressed or anything? And then we'll wrap it up. No? Okay. I will leave you with this. One of our tagline at MBT is "Together we'll make it happen," and I want to say, together we will get through this. And I want you to rely on your health and fitness. And I'll answer that question. All right, let me answer that question. Matt asked if we're creating a change, not craving. April, this will be there will be a replay. Your connection is unstable. Oh no. Wait, if we're craving a change, not craving food, how should we handle satisfying the change? I'm not sure I understand that question. If we're craving a change, not craving food, how should we handle satisfying the change? I'm not sure I understand what that means, but I will say this: whatever you're craving is never about the food, right? Think of a craving as a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. Think of a craving as a message you need to hear or want to hear, or think of a craving as a message your body is telling you. It means you need to put attention towards something else. So, it's never about the food. It's about what the food allows us to avoid. If you have a craving, think about what you really want: a distraction, a dose of pleasure, a relief. Like, it's never about the food. That will help you. Carrie writes, maybe he's bored being home all day. Oh, yeah. Well, then I think it's important to kind of set aside time, and go for walks, and watch a funny video once every few hours. It's interesting. I find myself working more than ever because I'm home. But like, you have to structure breaks to yourself. You have to plan. Meet a friend on FaceTime or call a friend or just watch something, read a fun, interesting article. Like, you don't have to constantly go to CNN or whatever you check and freak out. Like, just give yourself an outlet to just escape and chill out, and that'll help. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, Sandra, I'm glad that helped. I for sure want to be version 2.0. And I think sometimes thinking about, like, I mean, we'll talk about this on another call, but sure, no problem, Maggie. I was going to say, oh, the words we use with ourselves and the soundtrack we have in our head is super, super important. Important. And I think if you just even are have that awareness, and it's like, all right, this is what Sandra 1.0 would do, or there is that inner voice. The more we can learn to counter that inner voice and remind ourselves who the captain is, who the bus driver is. It's you. You're in control. It's not that inner voice. And sometimes saying and like just thinking about this and articulating it to yourself is really powerful. It's like, no, like Sandra 1.0 would do that, not this Sandra. Sandra 2.0 is not doing this. Okay. I'm going to make the most of what I can. All right. So just to end it, it's 9:15. I think that's enough. I'm exhausted. My throat is hurting. And I don't want to keep you too long. But as I said, or was going to say, our tagline is together we'll make it happen. I think I would like to say, sorry, I keep reading the comments and it's distracting, but it's fun. Together we'll get through this. And what I would encourage you to do is to lean on the fundamentals of your life, right? Sleep, exercise, eating well, your input, what you can control. And the hard part is when we're really overwhelmed, when we're really stressed, when we're really anxious, our first response usually is to recoil and hide and to let go of those things and to stop doing those things. And the problem is we start to feel even more powerless, right? And that perpetuates those feelings. But if you double down on the fundamentals, it will change everything. It will make such a difference. I learned this firsthand, when my father passed away, when my grandmother passed away, and now I'm leaning on those fundamentals. It makes such a difference. So when in doubt, go to the fundamentals. And this is something you can have for the rest of your life. So when this is all over, and in 6 months from now, and you're just stuck at work, or you're just really busy with homework landing, or whatever it might be, and you're really stressed, get back to the fundamentals because it's going to give you a clear head to deal with and handle everything else better. Okay. Back to the fundamentals. The problem is when things like this happen, we tend to let go of the fundamentals. And instead of controlling what we can control, and instead of going back to those, we tend to recoil and hide and do nothing at all. And that is our natural tendency. And we want to get away from that. Right. So 1.0 would do that. 2.0, the new version of you, won't let yourself do that. Okay. Because life isn't so stressful. Like you're not going to use it as a reason to let yourself off the hook. You're going to use it as a reason to double down on that so you can be the best version of yourself. Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope this was useful. I hope the quality was not too bad. And if you like this, maybe this is something we'll start doing more often. It's really fun to connect with you guys, hear your or read your comments. Really appreciate you all joining. Be safe, be healthy, and be sane. Remember, mental hygiene. It's really, really super important. I wrote about this the other day. Do what makes you feel good. Make it a point to do it every day. You wouldn't skip bathing for more than a day or two. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth. You wouldn't skip eating. You wouldn't skip basic things. That's your basic hygiene. Focus on your mental hygiene. Your mental hygiene now is more important than ever, right? So eating well, exercising, whatever makes you feel your best is really important. Okay, I can't stop, so I'm going to stop. We got you. We got you, Nikki. All right. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. We're going to get through this together. And thank you so much for joining. Bye.